guys, Dan Book Nook Noggin, and I just completed another Stephen King novel. This is one that he had originally written as Richard Bachman. This is my first time having read this one. I do know that I have reviewed some Stephen King books in the past that were rereads for me, but this one, this is my first read of this. I will admit that I had seen the film adaptation of this before I read this, so it wasn't the story from having watched the film, okay? Right out there. I already anticipated, I already knew all the twists and turns of this book before I got into it. I do want to warn people, because I know that there are a lot of people, like younger people, that are getting into reading Stephen King. This was originally published in 1984. I feel like I gotta say it was a different world then than it is now, very much so. If you're not familiar with Thinner, this is about a guy named Billy Halleck who is a lawyer. He's a husband, father, and he's a well-to-do lawyer, and he lives in a little town where, you know, everybody he knows, all the upper crust people, they all kind of look out for each other. So when something happens to him, such as running over an old gypsy woman, he pretty much gets let go, and it gets brushed to the side like it was no big deal that he hit and killed somebody. So that happens, and then an old gypsy man curses him. He touches him, and he just says Thinner, and of course that leads to Billy Halleck like gradually losing weight. And yeah, so this is kind of classified as a thriller horror, kind of paranormal. One of the things I was thinking, I kind of have my own theory on why Stephen King chose to write under a pen name. My feeling on this is that I feel like this is something that he had submitted before to his publisher, and they were just like, yeah, we're not feeling it, we're not going to publish this, because this is not on brand for Stephen King. I totally feel like that back then, I feel like the publishing house was probably like, you know, they didn't want to, you know, because here's this guy who has made a bunch of money for them writing horror, and this doesn't come off as like traditional Stephen King books that were published before 1984, if you catch my drift. So that's why I kind of feel like these were written under Richard Bachman, and I kind of wonder if he had not revealed himself to be Richard Bachman, would some of the other later books that are kind of, you know, different for King, would those have been published under Richard Bachman? Sort of like with The Dark Half, would that have been a Bachman book if he had never revealed himself to be Richard Bachman? Just food for thought, people. But one of the things I kind of noticed is it kind of seems like Stephen King cannot help himself. I noticed there was like a scene in the very beginnings of this book. As a matter of fact, it's less than 100 pages in, and it mentions something about a circus and a clown, and I was like, so I immediately went to the search engine, and I asked the AI, did Stephen King happen to write Thinner at the same time he was writing it? And yes, they were written around the same time, so that little Easter egg kind of makes sense. But if that was not it, it's like Stephen King is literally taking a baseball bat and hitting you over the head with it, because there's a later scene where he even says this is like a Stephen King novel, and it's said like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, really, guy? Steve, what are you doing? What are you doing, Steve? Where was the tact in that, Stephen? Where was the tact in that? But let's carry on, shall we? But yeah, of course, I have to give you guys a trigger warning. I know there are people that are concerned more if whether a dog dies in this, so I'm giving you your trigger warning now. Multiple dogs die in this. We're just going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at that. You have your trigger warning. Multiple dogs die in this. But yeah, this is kind of, it has that kind of like all this sappy kind of Stephen King, like just the things he thinks about people that are not like him. So like they're very over the top, the characterizations, I guess. And I never really thought about like pop culture kind of things, like, is that even a pop culture thing? But phrases that you may have heard, like, I used to grow up thinking the term "I got gypped" meant you got ripped off, but I didn't know that it was referring to gypsy people. I never really thought about that until I read this book. And now I was like, yeah, I can see how that's kind of offensive. That would not be classic Stephen King if it did not offend somebody, right? But yeah, it is what it is. I did think this was an okay read. That's one of the reasons why I'm standing with my opinion. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I feel like this was one of those books that was turned down by the publisher, and Stephen King's like, fuck you guys, I'm going to write this, but I'm going to write it under a different name. I feel like that's why it was published as a Richard Bachman book. But, I may be wrong. I'm not perfect, I'm just saying. But yeah, so like, this was a pretty short read. It was roughly around 318 pages. It took me a little while to get through it. I guess I kind of had to be in a mood for it. Like I said, I had seen the film adaptation, which is pretty true to the book. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a decent read. I gave this a 3 out of 5 star rating on Goodreads. If you are someone who wants to go and check out, what books he wrote as Richard Bachman, I would say go ahead and check this one out. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It's an average book for King. I do feel like, but then again, with the quantity of books that he has published in his writing career, I mean, you're going to have some that are just okay. They're not that great. And yeah, so this is a 3 out of 5 star rating for me. That's all I really got to say about it, guys. Sorry, this is going to be a short little wrap-up of that. But, if you want to go check it out, I will have a link to Amazon down below. Every little purchase that's made through that link helps out my channel. I get a small percentage of every sale from that link. If you would also like to help me out by donating to my channel, please buy me a coffee. I will have my coffee link down there as well. And if you're new here, you want to see more videos like this, by all means hit that subscriber button and hit that notification bell up above. Till next time, guys. Later.